The great novelist Gabriel Marquez once said, it's not about what actually happens, but how we remember things. If you look at politics, a similar dynamic is in play. It's not about what candidates truly represent, but what they represent in the minds of the voters. Or at least that's what PR practitioners tell you. Strategic communications, political communications is extremely important in the 21st century, especially in our era of disruption. So in order to understand, what is public relations all about? Is it a cynical art of manipulation, or is it something actually more neutral, if not positive? We have a special guest. Thank you very much, Alan, for making it to our little show here. Sa dami kong gustong sabihin, nabulol ako kasi ang dami natin gustong pag-usapan.
Right.
You are a PR guru, and I don't mean it in a deprecating, in a judgy way. I mean it in actually a complimentary way. I know people are not used to me not making balahura or something like that. But before talking about the political landscape in the Philippines and what are going to be the competing brands among different groups, and obviously I think we should think more long-term for 2028. What are we looking at here? First of all, could you do a kind of a one-on-one pedagogical overview? Bakit mahalaga ang public relations in 21st century politics? Is public relations essentially like what oil, is public relations to politics what oil was to industry in the 20th century?
Wow, the driver.
Exactly.
The key
right.
driver.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Richard, I know how to take and appreciate the compliment. Maybe PR guru, I'm far from that. Maybe miles from that lofty standard or that lofty title. But thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm hoping that some viewers will pick up some nuggets of wisdom. I know they do from you all the time. Hopefully they can get some from me. The main thing about public relations is, to unbox your question, no? I'll tell you the big difference. People often get public relations mixed up with advertising. Even public relations and journalism and marketing students often get that, get the lines blurred. So for example, if I came in here and I sat down on this table and I said, hello viewers, my name is Alan Herman. I'm a PR practitioner, a campaign strategist with X amount of years under my belt. I've made X number of candidates, etc., etc. That's me talking about myself. Now, on the other hand, if you had another guest here, and then you were talking to him or her, and then you said, that reminds me of something that great PR guru Alan Herman said, who is super good in his business.
Okay.
That's PR. So PR, advertising is you talking about yourself. PR is other people talking about you. So the main difference is, number one, the point of view. So where the information is coming from. So if it's you, it's a bit self-serving. If it's you talking about yourself, bandying your achievements, it's a bit self-serving. Thus, credibility drops a bit. But if it's public relations, it's other people talking about you. That makes it, number one, more credible. Number two, more pervasive. More channels talking about you. And good public relations, or at least the public relations that I would want to achieve, has a qualifier, which is other people talking about you in a sneaky way. Just getting it there in little bits and pieces, not hard sell. And by the way, did you see that show, The View from Manila? What a great show. I picked up something like that. You just infuse it in your daily conversation. That's good PR.
We should have had you on our very first episode. This is like episode 71 or something like that. So I kind of regret that in retrospect. So basically, it's a difference between self-aggrandizing narcissism on one hand versus reputation management.
Reputation management and reputation amplification.
Right.
So now, the second aspect or the second dimension to your question is it what oil is to industry? Wow, especially now in a social media and two-way media-driven world, in a crowdsourced media world. Because before, the information, as you know, was one way.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about pedagogy, right, it was one way. The anchor will be
supplier,
spouting information. It goes one way. The viewer will either take it or absorb it. There's no feedback happening. Unlike now, people can comment, people can take that clip and put their own spin to it, in recent phenomena is take your show and then I have a little box here saying, there goes Hey Darian talking about blah, blah, blah. I've taken
Nalabas yung chan niya, or mga ganyan,
right. I've taken your content and I'm editorializing it. So in this world, wow, PR has become essential, especially in the context of politics.
But I think we're talking about trolling. Oh, well, I think that's something different, right?
You have your share, brother. But you know what? Tell me who your trolls are, and I'll tell you if you're doing a good job or not. I think you're doing a good job.
I'm doing a fantastic job because I think it's a very multifaceted. I want to rewind a little bit. I think, again, I want this to be educational in a certain way,
Sure.
Alan, because I think we're very appreciative of someone like you. Because usually people, the PR people, I won't say they're shady or dodgy, but they try to avoid the limelight. So let me abuse your openness to the limelight. And this is not narcissism, this is reputation management. No, like, let's talk about history, because I'm a big fan of the Mad Men series.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
My goodness. I mean,
It's toasted, yeah.
Basically, my 20s was defined by that
Yes.
movie, right? And
I can tell from the ensemble. I can tell from the outfit.
I
yeah.
even think at some point, like, it was so pretentious of me and some of my British friends, like, what English are you using? I said, it's Mad Men.
Just don't pick up their vices, brother.
Mga 1950s and
Yes, yes.
of course, absolutely. The womanizing part, will never do that, obviously. No, but and then there you can see, especially the Nixon-Kennedy elections,
Yes.
you can see the blending of corporate branding and
Yes.
political branding. So what is the Philippines story? I don't know I know the American story, but what is the Philippine story? What is the interface of those two histories?
Okay. The skills are generic. In fact, in our own firm, I'll talk about our own firm.
Please.
We started in corporate PR. At the same time, we did political PR. And then we realized, wait, somewhere along the way, we realized the skills are generic. If I can make you patronize a brand of toothpaste, or if I can sell an automobile to you or a bank, I can get you to pin your hopes, dreams, wants, and aspirations on a guy you don't know.
So it's retail, literally retail.
Literally retail. You're
yeah.
selling a product being a man
Yeah.
or a woman, his or her promise and vision. So ultimately, the intersection point, the subsets, they all intersect into that area, which is known as the DSI. See, here we go.
Let's go.
The DSI is a dominant selling idea. The age of USP, and a lot of marketing students and a lot of PR, journalism, advertising students will be watching this and say, hey, that guy's, what is that guy talking about? The be-all and end-all is the USP. We grew up with the USP, the unique selling proposition.
Right.
But nowadays, that has shifted radically. We're no longer talking about unique selling proposition.
Because
Just because it's unique, it doesn't mean
it's
it will
attractive.
be patronized
Yeah.
or attractive.
Interesting.
So if I come here wearing a Santa Claus suit, and let's not even talk about some presidential spokesperson's fashion choices, very unique, but not necessarily appealing. For example, right?
I feel bad because I used to always get like, you're such a unique child. And I always thought it was a compliment. Yung pala.
You know what? It can be, and if taken in the right context. But
Right.
there's a big difference between a unique selling proposition and a dominant selling
Right.
idea. So, for
May
example,
dating,
a unique selling proposition would be this product. When you buy this coffee, for example, when you buy this coffee, you are helping the farmers, the poor downtrodden farmers, and because we do not take advantage of farmers and we are union busters. And if that's their only sales pitch, it's unique.
But it's
But
not.
consumers won't exactly say, yeah, let me go and buy that coffee because of that. I'm not saying that's not important.
Right.
But if you think of a dominant selling idea, wow, the smell of that coffee,
Yeah.
the taste of that coffee, the jolt, the caffeine level, for example. So that's a difference between a USB and a DSI. So what we try to do for a
Interesting.
product or a politician is find a dominant selling idea.
I want to build on that because everyone talks about disruption right now.
Yep.
I just had a lecture recently about age of disruption. I talk about BYD, BTS, and BRICS. All these letter
Right.
Bs that are changing
Right.
different dimensions of politics and competition economics. But following from your logic, it's not enough just to be a disruptor. You have to be a kind of a disruptor that actually appeals. Because kung disruptor ka lang for the sake of disruption, right? It might actually backfire, right?
And-
So what kind of disruptor works in that sense?
And thank you very much for, again, perfectly circling back to
Yeah.
the earlier point I made and adding that depth to it. Because if I ran through the studio right now, ran downstairs, took the elevator and ran upstairs and started screaming, "Hello, my name is Alan Herman.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm a PR guy. I'm a PR guy." They will be aware of me. They will be aware. Oh, that guy's name is Alan Herman. They will be aware of what I do, functionality, being
Yeah.
hardworking. Oh, he's a PR guy. But will they be engaged? No, they will be annoyed.
And
They're going to say,
you'll
"Get
not-
the hell out of my office."
And probably you'll be locked out of the building.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is the difference between noise,
Right.
disruptive noise, and communication. That's what PR tries to do. It tries to take noise, refine it, and make it into a communication. So if I now have a one-on-one with each executive of the studio, ideally have a cup of coffee with them and tell them about what I do a little bit, maybe give them a compliment or two, then I'm communicating. Then they'll say, "Oh, what a swell guy that Alan Herman
Yeah.
is. I'm sure he's a good PR guy."
Right.
Rather than
that was
me.
a Mad Men term, swell. I use that also, and I got raised eyebrows.
Right. It's
from
been grins. He gives me a grin.
This 1950s
Yeah.
American New York
Right.
stuff. Going back to this, probably maybe it's me, but I just felt the whole Mad Men series was about also like the aesthetics of cynicism, right? It's so cynical, right?
It sure is. It sure is. It's almost a lampoon, a caricature of,
well, it is. In a way, it's a critique, some would
Very
say.
much so, yeah,
You can
yeah.
even have a Marxist critique. You know, it's like, this is a
Yes.
good, like, exactly, because you're caricaturing how vacuous. I mean, this is just a life of from one branding to another until the character itself gets compromised. Although towards the end, he has his own weird
Yes.
Coca-Cola moment. Or
It's
whatever.
very meta if you think about it, right? As they are to the consumers, they can sell ice to the Eskimos, right? The Mad Men can, because again, the broader audience is not really looking for depth in that sense, which somehow folds into their own lives if you wanted to
exactly.
put it in that way.
So that's where my question comes from. Like, how did your family get into this business, and how did you make sure na, well, maybe you're okay with cynicism, but how do you make sure that you don't allow everything to be commodified, right?
Right,
Because I
right.
have nothing wrong with the coffee being commodified, because
Right.
But if you treat politics as complete retail in a very strict sense of the
Right.
word, then, well, we're just going from one cycle to another, and it's just one brand versus another brand, and you become cynical eventually, right? I mean, so how do you cope with that?
Well, Professor Richard, that's where your Jesuit education
Yeah.
comes in. Well, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of really the number one, seeing it for what it is. You cannot believe your own PR. If
Yeah.
you believe your own PR, and I'm not trying to, in any way, shape, or form, trying to
cast aspersions on
trying to hit anybody or
Yeah.
try to mock anybody. But the big joke in our industry are the people who watched 5 seasons of Mad Men, watch some Richard Haydarian podcasts and interviews, and suddenly I'm an analyst. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a PR guy. Yeah, I'm a political operator.
Yeah.
That's my favorite term, by the way. Political operator. That's like, how do I know somebody's not a CIA agent?
Yeah.
If they say they're a CIA agent. So same with political operator. So it's that. It's taking a healthy view of it, seeing it for what it is. I'm happy. Yes, my Jesuit education played a big role in that, in being able to distinguish what is perhaps what is cosmetic and what has depth, what is frills and what is functional. So that helps. And you know what? I have the unique lens of it's a very unique lens
Yeah.
coming from my industry, that you can imagine the egos I have to deal with, Richard.
Yes,
The
exactly.
politicians, the
Jesus.
egos I have to deal with. And then you have to do a heart check and say, wait a minute, am I becoming this guy?
Yeah.
Am I this guy? So it's a lot of that. I'm not saying I'm there. Sometimes I do get wrapped up in it. Sometimes I do. It does hit me like, what am I here for? I have these Alfie moments, when I'm contemplating under the shower,
Yeah.
thinking about my life choices, with the drama music playing. But for the most
Jeez,
part,
you made, even that is like a commercial.
for the most part, you have to really see it for what it is.
Do you, probably it's a sensitive question, but okay, not for you. But in general, do you think people who get into the PR industry, if I can put it that way, aside from having kind of a moral foundational education, because not everyone's lucky to go to Ateneo La Salle, let's just be honest about it. Sh- should there be some sort of a code? Should there be some sort of a code? Or when you say you have to take the world as it is, that means you just have to be open to working with any kind of candidate. So I don't want to talk about you in person. In
No,
general,
no.
what is your advice?
Well, the way you phrased your question is, should there be a code, not is there a code?
Yeah.
Is there a code? Sadly, there is none. Sadly, there is none. And we see this in the proliferation of people who will do anything to get a candidate elected. Is there a code? Personally, do we have a code? Our
Or
agency?
vetting process, if I can use that term.
Well,
again,
I
yeah.
can speak for my agency. Definitely, if you come to our office, you will see giant signs all over, strewn in our office. We do not, for example, one of the signs says, we do not make blank up.
Yeah.
So we won't do that. I will never engage in fake news. I will never engage in. I will
Troll
question.
operations, yeah.
I will question,
Yeah.
but I will not, or I will so intrigue, but I will not create fake news outright. Another sign in our office says it is vote, promote by profession, vote by conscience. So of course you can promote. That's your job, but you have to vote by conscience because again our product is different. It's politicians.
Yeah.
We're almost like tailors. We're almost like dentists.
Yeah.
In that respect, if a person sits down on your dentist chair, you can't say, what do you stand for? Who are you? Where's your moral compass? What's your stand on this? How do you feel about apartheid? How do before you're doing the root canal?
That's funny. I just said that because I took 2 years of dentistry and someone told me that's exactly what you have to avoid. Because if you end up a dentist, kawawa yung kliyente mo, you might lecture them on X, Y, and Z. So I said, okay, I'll just
While their
shift.
mouths are open, di ba? Captive audience.
That's why I shifted to social sciences, right?
But I do not doubt for a minute, Richard, number one, that you would have been an excellent dentist. And number two, you would have done the best job you can possibly do
Right.
once they sit on your chair agnostically. So that's what the PR, that's the challenge of PR. We have to be able to look
Right.
at a client and say, okay, we're going to support this client. This is what we're hired for. But having said that, and this is the underline, italics, capitalize, bold, we have the benefit, at least our agency, thankfully,
Yeah.
to be able to choose our clients.
You have that leverage or that space, that level of autonomy because it's a legacy, it's a tradition. What are because we sense it in the world of journalism, in the world of, everything is evolving, right? The rules of the
Sure
game
is,
are
yeah.
changing, and now the information ecosystem is totally different.
Right.
How is that affecting the PR industry in terms of, now you can do cheap fake, like AI-driven, like a million emoji attack person. Like,
Right,
these were
right.
not there 10, 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago, some would say, right?
My goodness, just comparing the time of my dad, he's the PR guru, he's
Right,
the pillar. You're just
So
comparing.
you'll be this Abu Guru? No, sorry, no. Oh, he's the Abu Guru. Abu Alan, like
That
the
would be
son,
me.
Ibn Guru, like something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Relisan, di ba?
Right.
Ali Relisan, Alan Relisan. So, my dad's practice was the time of placards and rallies and mass demonstrations. We still have that now, but very minimal, right? To megaphones and chants, making up chants.
Yeah.
Compare it to my time now, wherein you have Facebook pages, TikTok accounts, influencers, spreading data at the speed of light, essentially, right? A nice story I think I can share and I'd like to share is that when President Arap was being criticized for his English or lack of it
Right.
thereof, different strategists came up with different ways to counter it. So somebody said, you know what, give him an English doctorate. The other guy said, put an earpiece. The other guy said,
Give it screen,
he should
right?
put the transparent
Yeah.
boards, etc. And of course, my dad said, and I was beside him,
Just own it.
in Club Filipino, he said, you know what, embrace that thing. We're gonna
Panindigan
laugh
mo
all
yan.
the way to Malacanang.
Yeah.
So he literally wrote a joke book called Eruptions. How to speak
Right.
how to speak English without really trial. That's by Relly Herman, right?
Yeah.
He wrote it, and I remember this was during the early days, so that was still a book.
Right.
we were actually texting using our Nokias, our large Nokias. We were actually texting these jokes and this just passing it on to all of our contact lists. Can you imagine what that would look like now if that strategy was put into play? Number one, no more physical book. Who would need a book? Number two, no more need for texting. You just put that in Facebook groups.
Yeah.
You just make it a meme. You make it an art card. So, sir, wow, that's a long way from your original question. But has the landscape changed dramatically in my profession? By leaps and bounds. And if you're just comparing 2016 to now, 2016, 19, 2022, and now this election, you can see that the increments aren't even small.
Yeah.
I mean, media, the way media is consumed is changing. I mean, it's only this election, for example, that TikTok is playing such a big role.
Which did in Indonesia
Right.
and did, of course, in the US in terms of getting the swing Gen Z vote. Not in India because they banned TikTok, but I would have not been surprised if TikTok also played an important role in India.
Right. I mean, TikTok is another topic altogether, right? The algorithm is so built for what we do.
Yeah.
Because I have equal chance of going viral as Taylor Swift does.
Exactly.
Right?
It's
It's
not
literally
about the
content.
number of followers,
Yes,
right?
it's content. It's for your
Yeah.
page. So, I mean, they first employed this in 2022, right? They realized that the most popular topics on TikTok that time were magic, sexy girls dancing, of course.
Well, that's not very unique. I mean,
Yeah, it was magic, sexy girls dancing, and this ASMR, the sounds.
right.
So what they would do
I
is-
know that.
Yeah. First 40 seconds they would do that, and then after that it would be
Oh my-
vote
right.
candidate. So you're already
Oh.
hooked.
So no cats, because that's the YouTube and
yeah,
Facebook is like
Facebook.
cats, and then a bit dog.
In 2022,
Yeah.
it was magic tricks
yeah.
and the sexy girls
Interesting.
dancing, and then the ASMR thing.
Yeah. Okay, so then okay, a bit creepy. Actually, I listened to some of them. It's like, where is
Well,
this getting?
what's the appeal? What's the appeal?
Yeah,
I mean,
I do
don't know,
meditation.
brother.
I do yoga and meditation a little bit here and there. Aside from MMA, I heard from a common friend that you said my kick was not strong enough, but let me assure you that I was not well stretched.
I
You
was-
didn't see me in my black belt and
Number
all.
one, I was not the one who said it. I was not the one who said it, but we are a
Yeah.
common. We have a common interest.
yeah.
No, I mean I'm a 14-0
Yeah.
fighter as well.
Yeah.
Right?
So
I won the PKOT tournament 4 years in a row.
I think our next interview should be in a gym, having a conversation and all.
4 years in a row.
But
Shout out Ben Horabalos Cup. Anyway,
but I think
Submission Dungeon Philippines.
was that a bad branding on my part? No, I think one thing. I want to talk about humor. I think, and this is where I think Philippines is very unique.
Absolutely.
Kasi napansin ko yung humor, like I have lines when I give talks in the US.
Right.
I have very dry versions when I'm in, let's say, a British, whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And then
British.
when I'm in
The British humor.
in Italy and España, it's very different.
Talk with your hands.
it's there. And then Filipino, iba talaga yung joke. I would say pinakamalapit sa atin is Indonesia. I mean, I'm not conversant in Bahasa.
Right,
But I
right.
used to have a partner who was part Indonesian, Malaysian, and she would explain to me things like, this is basically a Filipino humor, right? And she would laugh at Filipino humor when I explained to her.
Right.
And then we have a few words, like, although it's Ilocano, we say makan to eat. It's the same in Bahasa. Anyway, I want to talk about the role of this whole eruption thing.
Right.
Because I realized one reason, for instance, the current president is a bit struggling in terms of connectivity is that they feel he's a bit too statesman-like.
Yeah, I mean, lacking that relatability, lacking that because
Especially
humor,
coming from Digong.
Yes, humor is the great connector. In fact, it has been said, one of the tenets of our profession is, if you really want to be reductive about it, is there's only two ways to win an election: make them laugh or make them cry.
Or both, right? At the
Or
same time.
both,
Yeah.
or both. So I remember one of my really eye-popping cold splash of water on my face moments was I was we were running a local campaign for a large city, and we had all the dirt on the opponent, all the dirt, all the receipts of
Yeah,
his
recibo,
corruption,
right, yeah,
recibo, right? So we put it out, and it got media mileage, and it was in the local radio stations. And this guy, I promise you, would go on stage and say, I hear that I have been accused of this, 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 this. I can answer all of those point by point. I can do that. Or would you rather hear me sing?
Yeah.
And the crowd would say, Kumanta!
Parang kilala ko to.
And then he will sing for totally forgotten. And that's when I realized, okay, this is what it takes to win an election.
So basically, Budots works.
Budots absolutely works. You call that DEAN, D-E-A-N, DEAN campaigning. Delight, entertain, amuse, and make noise.
So how, okay. I have a new term, budol-dots. You know, like the budol and budots tend to go together without casting aspersion on any candidate in particular. Because everyone's doing budots nowadays, including yours truly. No, but including non-candidates.
Hey man, I've seen your brother Louie. It ain't bad.
That's the Tito version. You haven't seen the Kuya version. But going back to this, so again, maybe this is the idealistic part of me, or maybe the journalist part of me. How can you reconcile the Dean part with we need an informed, mature democracy? Is there a way to reconcile that?
You know, the Filipino electorate is not even, I wouldn't even use the word unique. I would even call it mind-boggling, strange, because we flip the script compared to the rest of the world. What do I mean? It's only in the Philippines where you will find that voters are looking to their local candidates for solutions. But in the national scale,
Like for entertainment.
they want distractions.
Right.
So the local voter will go home, will come home, arrive in his house after a long day of work, and he'll see baku-baku yung kalsada, and he'll say, "Who can fix this kalsada? Is it Mayor A, Mayor B, candidate Mayor A, candidate Mayor B?" Enters his house, wala na naman tayong tubig. Who can fix this problem? Is it candidate A or candidate B? And then sees the son and the daughter, Papa, kailangan na magbayad ng tuition bukas. Ang mahal-mahal ng tuition. Who can give me a scholarship in local elementary school? Mayor A or Mayor B? And then he sits down and he watches the TV. And he sees two candidates. Senatorial candidate 1 is talking about platforms, programs, vision for the future. Senatorial candidate 2 is cracking jokes and dancing with a gorilla. Guess which program he will watch? The gorilla.
I have a question about that. Is this something that developed over time? The reason I'll ask is because there was a time when Jovito Salonga would top the Senate races.
Absolutely, and became Senate President and ran for President.
And I mean, this is a guy with a PhD in law from Yale. So just to give you an idea of credentials.
He was 104 years old. I'm joking. He was not 104 years
you know,
old.
and he would speak like Seneca, right? In the Senate, you know, like Senado, you know, like it was really
just chocolate for your ears. I mean, you had great statesmen, right? You had a Joker Arroyo who was in the Senate. You know, statesmen, orators is the word we're looking for, right? It's cyclical.
And then suddenly you have, God bless her soul, Miriam Defensor, who did something different here, right?
Right.
So no one would question her IQ or intelligence, but she would come with this self-deprecating, funny, even making fun of her own accent.
Later on. That happened later on.
So that means she was smart enough to realize you cannot do the typical Senado, you know, the Roman Republic style.
Yes.
What happened there? Is it because the choice, the taste of the audience changed? Obviously, it's an ecosystem. So some would say, kasi kung titignan mo rin yung news industry, nag-evolve din. So we had a guest in the past who talked about, you know, when TV Patrol was launched, and then suddenly it's an entertainment. It's less infotainment. So did the preference of the constituency also change? This idea that in the national, wala akong time sa mga komplikadong issue, just entertain me. But at the end of the day, I need someone to fix my stuff. So now suddenly the national candidate is like yung tito mo na medyo lasing, tas magpapalibre. Pero tomorrow your mom and dad have to fix all the mess, right? That's the local.
That's the local.
This seems to me a historical phenomenon. It doesn't seem to be a complete, like forever universal phenomenon.
No,
right?
again, absolutely. We talk about cycles. In the case of just tracking back to Senator Miriam, the late great Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, you know, it was a mixture of two things. Number one, she is naturally funny. I have to give it to her. She is naturally funny.
She's witty, yeah.
She's witty. So, number one, it was a realization on their part that when she was talking about, you know, when she would give these fiery speeches talking about policy change and hitting the pillars of government, the audience wasn't so engaged. But when she'd crack her joke or two, wow, the audience would come alive.
And then her book, Stupid is Forever.
And then the realization came, wait a minute. This is how I engage. And then she had the stupidest forever, the pickup lines, the masusungit became a brand in and of itself. Galing.
Yeah. I mean, if only she made it to the TikTok era. I mean, she would have been
You would,
natural. Probably presidential.
I would have followed her, right?
Yeah.
So there you
Probably
go.
would have voted for her.
So there you go. In
God-
fact, you know how enduring her brand is. You know how
yeah.
powerful and iconic her brand is.
I mean, now
there's a senatorial candidate.
No, yeah. No, the second na sister ba kita? So that tells you, right?
There's a senatorial candidate who's saying, ang bagong Miriam Defensor Santiago.
Although there is another senator paalis na who was trying to be the but it didn't work that way. It was more Karen than Miriam.
Yes.
There's a difference in being Karen.
Treatment. That's why you hire a guy like me. Because we're the ones who will strike that balance between, nope, overdoing it, brother. You gotta wind that down a bit.
Right.
You gotta walk it down. So yeah.
Speaking of this mimesis situation, because I remember during Duterte's time, maraming gusto nagpapa-Duterte. Biglang parang dumadami nagmumura.
Walang transference, di ba?
Oh, walang exactly.
Walang
Pero hindi
transference.
nag-work.
Walang
Hindi nag-work.
transference.
So, let's talk about authenticity because let's go Shakespeare, right? Some are born with greatness, right? Some achieve, and some greatness is thrust upon them. I think
And
that's,
some hire good PR agents.
that's thrust upon them, right?
Right.
So, I don't believe na authenticity in the world of politics today is really authentic. I think it could be contrived. And a lot of people have contrived authenticity or evolved. Their algorithm evolves. So, what makes a successful mimesis versus trying hard na sablay na pa-Duterte na hindi naman gumagana?
Okay.
What are the rules there from a PR side?
Essentially, babalik tayo sa E3 rule, di ba? You have to be exceptional in one. You have to be exceptional in something. You have to have a reason to believe. And from that exceptional thing, it's the job of the team, guys like myself, to enhance. So it has to be there to begin with, is what I'm saying. You cannot do a hair transplant.
Makeup.
You cannot do a hair transplant, or not a hair transplant, but you can't do a hair weave on somebody who doesn't have hair. Right. There has to be the root, right? There has to be some growth there at least. And we call that a reason to believe, or at least a source of authority. If suddenly, for example, and I'm not picking on anybody, if suddenly candidate A, who never graduated from university, for example, and wasn't particularly well known to be a scholar, is suddenly bandying themselves as the champion of education, educational excellence, blah, 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 will not work. I have a dear friend, and I mean super dear friend, who was born into
Privilege.
Immeasurable wealth, almost. And then suddenly, during the campaign, they were trying to make that candidate a man of the masses.
Drink from plato and eat from...
Hindi na ginawa yun. Sino ba
for the traffic and worse.
Sino ba ito pinag-usapan natin?
Okay,
diba?
so I think I always said that campaign was how not to do it campaign, right? I always say like that was the classic how not to do it. For me, the challenge is now is from the other direction, right? Marami dyan na matalino, talagang A student, napunta sa matalaning school, etc. Pero ang elitist ang labas nila. So how can we make them relatable? And they are not born into immeasurable. I mean, they really picked themselves up by bootstraps. There were scholars, didn't that. What is your advice to those people who are coming from that background? Middle-class background, very intelligent, great schools, pero yung relatability yung challenge nila. Should they Budots their way through? But some would say, but by just trying to replicate the other ones, you actually lose your unique point of view. What is your advice for this
Again,
kind of
ingat lang sa Budots. Again,
huwag natin sobrahan.
Hindi naman lahat binabagayan ng Budots, di ba? Hindi lahat binabagayan ng Budots. I'm all for youngifying or modernizing. I'm all for that. But to your specific example, they're scholars, they're smart, matalino sila. The first advice I would give is, how do you take that knowledge base? How do you take the solutions in your head? How do you take the path going forward and apply it to real, actual, gut challenges? And yung mga hinaharap na problema ng taong bayan. let's take you, for example, Richard. If you're talking about the tectonic shifts in the socio-political landscape of the Asiana region, pag nakinig sa yung tao, sasabihin nila, ano sabi nung Tisoy? Anong sabi niya? Anong sabi?
Mga Konya conversations.
Oo, anong sinasabi niyan? Pero pag sinabi mo, actually, ang dapat ho natin gawin dyan, napansin ninyo, sa ibang bansa, hindi ho sila matyaga. They work smart po. Ino-automate po nila yung mga ano nila. So, ikaw, 8 hours kayo nagtatrabaho, nakakagawa kayo ng 10 walis. Pero sila, 3 hours na nagtatrabaho, 100 yung walis nila. Kasi nag-apply sila ng industrial machinery at automation. So, instead of going through your whole shtick of, well, it's not a shtick, going through your whole lecture of the importance of modernizing processes and procedures in order to uplift the masses and increase work productivity. Sinabi ko lang yun, inantok na yung tao. Diba?
Well, except, I mean, you can have a multi-layered communication strategy. Kung mga posh na mayayaman na MBA people, you have to talk. Kasi if you do it the pedestrian, they'll kick you out. Like, you're not worth the honorarium we're giving you, right?
Pero, of course, the major difference here is, hindi ka kandidato, Richard.
Right.
Hindi ka kumakandidato. So, you can afford to, you know,
no, you do that for your international media. For instance, Bloomberg is interviewing as a presidential candidate. You can speak in those ways. You cannot Budots on Bloomberg, right?
Absolutely.
But obviously, when you're doing local channels and all, simplify more. I mean, Duterte would just say, wala akong alam dyan sa politics.
And then you do the calculus in your head. Diba? You think, number one, how many percentage of these are actually my voters, my block, my target audience? So then you do the calculus in your head. Unfortunately, the way the numbers work in the Philippines, it seems that maybe the people who watch Bloomberg aren't the majority.
But they may have but kidding aside, no, I mean, going back to this, I mean, one of my favorite quotes from Napoleon was that he said his mind is like a set of drawers and he takes out whichever drawer fits the moment.
Yeah.
Isn't that probably the way forward na pwede pa Budots in some certain context and pwede pa posh Konya? Like, in a sense, can that work? That kind of a multi-layered approach? Or consistency is king?
Again, strike anywhere is key. Ideally, that is the ideal. Lahat binabagayan mo. That is the ideal. That is the goal. It hardly ever happens because hindi naman pwedeng, I'll just give you an example. Nakaka 3 term ka na sa Senado, for example, you're 70 years old, parang hindi na yata bagay sa'yo makipag-flip-top battle. Dahil nasa tondo ka, di ba? Nakita mo yung mga boys, nag-flip top. So ginawa mo, nag-cup ka, binaliktad mo. Pagtatawa na ka nun, they're gonna turn you into a meme.
Lolo rapper.
Si Lolo rapper. Si ano ka na, nagbumurang kamatis, Lolo ka na. So, you have to tone it down, you have to know the levels, have that self-awareness to know na alin yung bagay, alin yung hindi na pagtatawanan, di ba?
And last, moving forward, I mean, looking forward, I always say, I mean, I've written extensively academic stuff on this, on populism. Pero for me, honestly, labanan lang ito ng variations of populism. Practically all of our presidents had a version of populism.
That's absolutely accurate.
It's the only game in time. It's just a question of which cadence, which tone. So, given that,
or which incarnation for that matter.
Exactly. I mean, so given that, for let's say looking forward to the next elections, the next big one, 2028, people who want to make a good impact, who are responsible, who realize actually may serious problems tayo, hindi pwede purong distraction. Because if the guy at the national level hanggang Budots lang, good luck sa climate change, West Philippine Sea.
Correct. Foreign policy.
Exactly. You cannot Budots the PLA Navy. They're going to shoot you down, right? You cannot Budots climate change. You're going to be wiped away, right? So,
hello, we're members of the World Bank. I'd like to present this dance to you.
Exactly. So, although I heard that when they were visiting delegations to Senate, they always go to Manny Pacquiao for selfie. Even from the most serious countries.
Hey, he's an icon, man.
Yeah, he's a global icon, so we'll give that to him. No, but going back to this, so moving forward, for responsible candidates or potential candidates, what is your advice to them para maging appealing while not being sell out or hard sell? Right?
Correct.
2 things avoid. Sell out or hard sell. Those 2 are the 2 things you want to avoid.
Correct. Okay, so the first advice I would give to these qualified candidates who really have a heart for the people and really want to do good, number 1, flip the formula. Don't bring the audience to where you think they should be. Let me educate you. Don't bring the audience to where you think they need to be to get your message. Go down to where they are. Understand their lives,
Yeah.
understand their hearts, understand their circumstances. So that's the first.
Compassion, basically.
Compassion. Secondly, stick to what we call order of attribute preferences. I always talk about this, diba, Richard? Order of attribute preferences. In any given election, there are issues that the Filipino voters will concentrate on and will base their decisions solely on.
Yeah.
For our country, it never changes. It's always the helps, diba? Health, education, livelihood, peace and order, social services. So please don't talk about climate change. Please don't talk about sovereignty. Oh my God, PTSD of 2019. Sovereignty. Nobody understands what sovereignty is.
Traidor, naintindihan nila yan.
Traidor, naintindihan nila.
Pwede yun,
Pero
oo.
kailangan mo i-apply sa helps.
Right.
Kailangan mo i-apply
Kasi
sa
kung
helps.
traidor, wala tayong food security, nanakawin yung isda natin.
Yes.
Lulutuin tayo sa sarili natin mantika, parang gano'n.
Yes. I-relate mo parate sa order of
Nesting ang
attribute.
tawag ko dyan, nesting.
Yan.
Yeah.
Priming in our
Sorry,
world.
I'm inventing my own Haydarian.
Haydarianism.
That's how
Yes,
pretentious.
Haydarianisms.
Yeah.
Kami priming ang tawag namin dyan. So yun ang two advice ko. Go to where the market is. Don't try to, because you're double hurdling. You're trying to bring the market where you are, and then you're going to try to win them over. So double hurdle yon. Ikaw na lang bumaba. Intindihan mo yung buhay nila, intindihin mo kung nasan sila, ano ba yung importante sa kanila, without judgment. Without saying, ay, the uneducated Filipino voters, ay, bobotante, ay, and other...
Elitism, all that
so,
nonsense.
wag ganon. And then secondly, pumili ka ng order of attribute preferences. May mga kliyente akong ganyan, na dating top sa Senado. Suddenly, they get,
Complacent.
inspired. They have a dream, di naman dream, but they feel strongly about an issue like the environment, save Mother Earth, kalikasan, ganun. Nag-a-advise ako, Sen, see, I've given away too much. Wag dyan. Wag tayong lumayo sa helps.
You can do it later on.
Bumaba sila sa survey na parang naghihingalo, binalik nila yung messaging nila sa helps. So, umakit ulit sila. And then, when you're in power, when you're in the right position,
Then do the messaging and
Then
evangelizing and all. Yeah.
or initiate change. Do the work.
So, the only problem I would have with that is, if everyone is offering the same thing, how do you stand out then?
Okay.
If everyone's talking about gut issues,
That's
then
a fantastic question and one that I will happily answer. May time pa ba tayo? May time ba naman tayo, di
My
ba?
2 seconds. No, just kidding. No,
May
please,
time-
yeah. How do you
Okay.
stand out when everyone is offering the same thing, right?
Richard, are we the same vintage?
I hope so.
Ito, baka ad placement na to eh. Baka ad placement na. So, sorry na lang kung ad placement to. When I was in college, every time I used to have a headache, I used to take this pill called Midol. Nabutan mo ba yung Midol?
Parang hindi yata.
Hindi mo na nabutan yung Midol.
Advil generation na kami.
Nabutan niyo ba yung Midol? So I would drink this pill called Midol and my classmates would say, "Why are you drinking Midol? That's for menstrual pain. Baka baka magkaroon ka ng matres.
Right.
Baka tubuhan ka ng ano." Hindi. Ang Midol, ibuprofen yan. So ngayon, tatanungin kita, pag masakit ang katawan mo, anong iinumin mo?
Right.
Alaksan.
Alaksan. Oo.
Ibuprofen pa rin yan. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. Pag gusto mo safe yung gamot mo, biogesic, ingat. So, they're selling the same thing but they're getting niche.
Right. Out of it, yeah.
So, turn it into a one-nail message. It's the same with detergents. Diba? Everybody was competing in paputian. Pinakamaputi. Ito, mas maputi pa. Pinaka sobrang grabing puti. And then along comes a player and says, maputi kami at hindi mo kailangan magkula.
Yeah.
Number one. Then another player comes in, maputi kami at kami pinakamabango. So it's that. It's taking your gut issues and adding a plus. That's the challenge.
On that very retail-oriented note, I mean, then, this is the era of retail politics. I'm just saying to anyone who wants to help the country, you have to learn also the ABCs of
Absolutely.
communication.
Yeah.
Political communication.
XYZs and 1, 2, 3s.
Yeah.
Kaya
Kaya,
tayo, 224 tayo. 224 ba tayo? Today, tomorrow, and forever. He doesn't get the reference. Hindi ka updated,
I'm
brother.
millennial, man.
Hindi ka
I'm-
updated,
I'm a-
brother.
I'm a-
224.
I'm a conyo, millennial,
Ano yan?
so...
Si
But I'll
Phil,
get
si
there.
Philmar tsaka si Andy yun, dude. Yung 224. Hindi mo gets. Ano ka talaga eh?
No. I saw the flowers
living,
and the...
living in an elitist
No. I
cape
saw
ka,
the
brother.
flowers. I saw. I mean, my tita is still in Siargao. She still updates me on the latest Fillmore episode. Thank you very much for that
pleasure's
fantastic pedagogical point of view. And in fairness, not as depressing as I thought. Catch us again next week here on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on Spotify and YouTube. I'm Richard Hidaria, and that was The View from Manila. We're One News, all sides, all the time.